Folks, welcome to Wani. Vitek here, along with my buddy Rishabh, with the one and only Tommaso Riccardi of Fleshgod Apocalypse. How you doing, man?
Very good, very good.
Uh,
Very busy,
mhm.
and that's good.
Excitement level, isn't it, within the band? Just 2 weeks left.
Yeah,
It's building up quite well so far with the release of The Fool as well. So, how's the band feeling? I mean, response from fans when you guys released the first single was phenomenal, isn't it?
yeah, man. Like really, I have to say, really over expectations. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we had the perception that this was, going to be a good one, and that it's a very good moment for the band in general.
Right.
But we have like almost 200,000 views in 3 weeks for the Fool, so that's amazing, and I see that like a lot of people is talking about it, and the first reviews out are amazing, and also a lot of interviews, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean it really looks amazing, and I have to be honest, even more than expected.
Fantastic, dude. That's amazing to hear. And when you guys were this album cycle was coming into the picture, it was stated that King is a guitar-driven album, but ultimately, as a fan or as a journalist, when we listen to it, it's a meaningful balance between all the elements that have come out of Fleshgod's collection. So how is this balance achieved for you guys to make sure it's not just a guitar-driven album, but like a perfect balance of all things Fleshgod Apocalypse?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think for which regards the guitar thing, is also Francesco was probably also talking about the fact that actually, compared to other times, um, we actually studied pretty often from guitar riffs, and we really exactly to reach that kind of balance. We really wanted to improve, of course, the orchestral elements, and keep that kind of grandiosity that is in our music. But in the
Right.
meantime, we also took care a lot about the riffing and trying to use guitars in a slightly different way, because sometimes we've been using guitars much more as a string section,
Mm-hmm.
to adapt the guitars to the orchestrations. In this case, we really aimed to find a balance in which this adaptment was still possible, but in the meantime, some of the riffing, especially when the guitar riffs kick in and it's more evident, we wanted also to give it a much more classically metal
Right.
kind of sound. And so that's all about finding a good balance between the elements, and also thinking the arrangement in a slightly different way, also to give more dynamics to the songs. And I really think that actually we are very satisfied about that, because indeed I agree with the fact that there's all the elements of Fleshgod Apocalypse in this album,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also many new approaches that you can hear, and a lot of variety, because we really try to bring out all the different aspects to in which Fleshgod style could be expressed.
Right.
And of course, also in this case, also the production and the work we did with Kick Studios and Fascination Street Studios has been extremely important, because to reach that kind of balance and dynamic, it is really, really important also to work properly on the sound.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, like usual, we also had some songs and some parts that actually came from orchestral themes. But
Mm-hmm.
in the time, it is true that we had many of the main ideas of some songs coming from guitar riffs, and
Mm-hmm.
then we were the arrangement together with Francesco Ferrini on the
Piano.
orchestrations.
Right, right. That's good to hear. And like you said, fusing the classical elements as well. It's got a perfect combination. The death metal sound and classical metal seamlessly seem to complement each other, in King. So for you guys, I mean, how would it be if you had to describe the relationship between these two, genres, apart from having some similar melodic progressions?
Well, like every crossover, because that's how I would describe the mixing of two different genres.
Right.
It's been a matter of finding the right formulas, because I really think that every single musical style on earth can actually be mixed in some way.
Hmm.
But of course, every kind of music follows some slightly different rules.
Right.
So the challenging part is actually to understand which characteristic can actually match, and get all those parts from the different musics you're trying to mix, that can actually work together.
Hmm.
So actually, in the beginning, it really took a lot of time, when we actually started before Agony, for example. For the first time, we were bringing this mix in which actually the orchestrations were playing throughout the whole songs. And at the beginning, it's been really hard, because you have to understand this mechanism, and establish, indeed, new rules in the music, to understand how these two kinds of music can work together.
Right.
And then it slowly starts defining, and you start also learning the tricks and the secrets of your own style.
Style. Hmm.
And you slowly understand which things you can do and which things you cannot do, because they simply don't work, and how also to push those limits uh, further. So at this point, it's a pretty organic process, because we really know how to work with these elements.
Hmm.
And in King, we also dared a lot, I guess. I mean, we really tried to also bring up other aspects
Oh.
of this music. If you think about songs like Syphilis, for example,
Hmm.
uh, that's the perfect example, because it's also it's almost a doom, rhythmically talking, is it's almost a doom song. It's very slow and very
Right.
heavy, but in the meantime, you can totally hear that that's a Fleshgod Apocalypse song.
Song.
So it's something we never did before, for example. And also in the fast songs, I mean, the kind of riffing and the kind of rhythmic solution that we used are actually much, much more, they're pretty different from everything we did before, even
Right.
if keeping, obviously, the typical things that obviously distinguish our music.
Awesome. That's glad to hear that. And even on the album, like King, which is on a grand level, the lyrics have tried to recreate the classical age in terms of, let's say, the problems and the fear faced by humans. Now, when you, as a songwriter, and let's say as a person who has this vision in mind, when you think about King, I mean, he's a figure, and there's a way to overcome this. From your side, what are some of the modern symbols of this king that you see?
Well, it's a very contrasting figure, actually, because someone criticized the fact, and it can make sense, actually, because someone said, okay, but you're using the king as actually a positive character, like the only positive character in the story.
Hmm.
But usually kings are seen as people who actually have all the power for their own and stuff like that.
Slaves and stuff.
Yeah, but in this case, the image of the king was really almost a fairy tale version of a king. I mean, the king still represents someone that is noble,
Okay.
and that actually needs to take a lot of responsibilities to try to do what is right. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So I mean, we look at the figure of the king as someone who has a lot of has integrity and believes in justice in this case. Um, and even if being powerful also mean having a lot of
Responsibility,
responsibility.
right?
Yeah, and of course it means also that sometimes you have to take decisions that can be also very strong and also painful for others, but you always have to be able to choose what is the best, the possible best, because of course it's not going to be perfect, you know what I mean.
Right, right.
So this is, this king for us really symbolizes what
Positivity.
we, yeah, not only positivity, but also uh, things that we can consider real things, concrete
Okay.
things. represents, let's say, an old world, but I don't want to say old in the meaning that it's a past word. I'm just meaning that it represents the basic things in life, the values and the concrete things that are actually important in life. And
Right.
this is in contrast with with the fact that nowadays there's really it's really happening that there's a lot of superficiality out there. I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of addiction to a lot of things that we actually don't need.
Need. True.
That's the point, it cyclically happens in history. So I mean, it's nothing new in a way, but philosophically talking, I really feel that this is in some ways a dark time, because actually we really need to reconnect with our past and don't forget it, because evolution is completely normal and it's also positive in some ways, but it's also really important to focus on real things and remember which are the important things in
Yes.
life. So the king
Absolutely.
is someone in this story. He is someone who knows that. In contrast with all the other characters described throughout the songs of the album, there are characters that represent these this society and maybe also humanity, that it's like getting lost and being guided by fear, sometimes by jealousy, by greed. So
Right.
all these other characters are really trying to tear his power down,
Hmm.
and we can also transfer this into a very personal level, because I mean, the message is okay, everyone is a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
So we can make a difference. So, but the only thing that we have to do to make the difference is to choose the king that we have inside. We have to choose that
Right.
king, because it's always a matter of choosing. Inside every one of us, there's a
There's a
killer
king.
and there's a person. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's both of them. So the king is the one who is responsible, is the one who is able to say, okay, I choose this because even if it's the hard path, it's still the right thing to
To
do.
do. Awesome, man.
So
Glad to hear that, the entire concept, how you explain it's as a person who looks at the cover art might just give you an overview, but what goes behind it, what basic message does it convey is something even only a band can formulate.
well, the cover art. First of all, we wanted to do this new experiment working with Aliran Cantor, because we are obviously big fans of his previous works.
Hmm.
And we thought he could have the right style, and actually he totally confirmed to be a great artist, because we've been talking a lot about all these things we just talked about, and about the concept behind the album and all the characters and the way these characters are, and all their fears and their behaviors and stuff like that, to try to give him as much as possible all the information needed for a good inspiration to paint
Paint.
this image of the king. And the great thing is that actually from our ideas and all the information that we gave him, he also made his own interpretation of the image we had in mind,
Right.
and that's amazing, because I mean, I really think that he totally got it, because looking at this king, it's a very simple image
Simple.
at the first look,
True.
but then there's many layers, there's many things that you can notice. I mean, all the strings holding the kings, like someone who's trying to manipulate him,
Right.
or like the crown that is not on his head, is
Head.
on one side and is chained to the ground. Or I don't know, like something that is pretty hard to notice is that, like, between his legs you can see a piece of a big black serpent that is like sneaking on his legs.
Oh, I gotta check that out.
Yeah, that's not easy. Not just a few people notice that at the first look, and all these elements are crazy because they really represent this king that, and especially his expression. His expression is crazy because you
Yeah.
can see that he's a very proud person, but in the meantime, you see that he's tired. He's consumed by this continuous fight against windmill. you can totally tell that he is tired because he's been fighting his whole life against something that is almost seems to be almost impossible to
To
stop.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I that's the concept. This king is a very classic image, but I really think that it totally passes the idea of darkness that is inside this concept.
Concept. Awesome, man. Good to hear that.